I'm so happy to have you here today.
Yeah,
I told everyone before you walked in, like, we're all going to learn how to breathe because I used to think that I was breathing. I don't even want to say correctly. It's something that we're not taught at a young age, how to really learn how to breathe.
Yeah.
And from even just the few sessions I've had with you and following you on Instagram, thanks to Jason Strauss, who introduced us.
Yeah.
It has, I can't even begin to tell you just the amount of anxiety that's lessened in my life.
Awesome.
Overall. And I know I still, this is an endless journey, right? Of really learning and listening to your body, but
you're a mom of two young children. And
there's a lot. There's a lot of things. But I needed to have you here because of your knowledge.
Thank you.
In this space. And you share things in a real how-to, tangible way. And you've been working as a human performance specialist for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And you're a certified Lois Laney certified restorative breathing coach. Tell us more, please. We need to know all the things.
And also an Oxygen Advantage master instructor. So the Oxygen Advantage is more of the biomechanics and the biochemistry, but there's and the psychophysiological department, but what Lois teaches is a complete system. And I love the quote in her book. It says, designed by nature, organized by Lois. So as a neurologist, she knows how to switch on cranial nerves that might have been switched off. Not that they're off, but they're not running at the right electrical current that they need to. So then the rest of our bodily processes don't function as well. And what's the most important? Breathing. So she comes at it from the bioelectric standpoint. So it's a complete system, which I've never learned because I've had immense amounts of progress with Oxygen Advantage in the last 6 years. It transformed the way I breathe. But it wasn't getting me to the level that I tell people you can get to. I couldn't get there myself. So now that I started doing all this neurological work on myself, for the first time in 25 years, I'm sleeping well. I've never slept well. I've been an athlete since I was born, and I've had a lot of trauma. I grew up in 1969. I was born. My mom smoked all through pregnancy. Her mom smoked all through pregnancy. So in essence, I was born dirty. You inherit your lymphatic system from your mom. So I had a lot to overcome, a lot of challenges. And my mom told me when I was 3 years old, it's funny because I told Lois this the other day. My mom said my terrible twos lasted till I was like 6. But when I was 3 years old, she was at the sink and she was the stove making sauce. And she turned around and I was standing up in my high chair. And before she could get to me, she said, "You just jumped. That's who you were." And I jumped off the high chair and I landed on my head.
Oh,
they rushed me to the hospital, but they said, "Oh, he seems to be fine. There's nothing wrong with him. He's normal." They observed me, but they don't test you. So Lois said her next book might be Test, Don't Guess, right? Or Don't Guess, Test.
Right.
So you got to test neurological functions, and you have to do it with your eyes closed, and almost everybody does it with their eyes open. So you have to do it with your eyes closed because the brain can't see what you're doing. So it has to be sensorial in that position of feeling certain movements on the tongue or the face without seeing what's happening. So then you're sensing your body's feelings and your cranial nerves are running the whole show. There's nothing more important than increasing the electricity and taking out the shock that's been experienced in our lifetime. So at 3 years old, I jumped out of the high chair. And then when I was like 5 or 6, actually, I've had 2 very profound moments with Lois in the last 4 months. I studied with her first 7 years ago. And then, COVID happened and I didn't get to do her year-long program. So now I'm in her year-long program. And I've had 2 very profound moments. I've had a couple aha moments in my life, but these 2 moments were just unbelievable. And the most recent one was 4 Saturdays ago, and I was doing her techniques, and I was standing up, and I was lifting my chin. I had a stick in between my teeth. I can go into why. But a stick in between my teeth, and I was humming and swallowing, and I felt a bubble burst. Boop. Like a really big bubble. My neck went boop. It didn't hurt. And all of a sudden, a memory popped into my head, and I said, holy shit. I hung myself when I was 6 years old. Growing up in the Bronx, we had ledges that were like this big. I lived on the ground floor. So as a little boy, I could play on the ledge. I would close the curtains, but there were Venetian blinds on the window, and they were like metal. And they had rope cords. And I remember way back then, kids would hang themselves all the time. So one day I was playing, and I don't know why, I put the rope around my neck, as any kid would do. You think it's a necklace, probably. And I fell off the windowsill. And Mom was in the kitchen. She heard some really weird noise. She comes running into the bedroom, and there I am. My toy box was underneath. Thank God my feet were touching the toy box, but I was hanging with this rope around my neck. Well, I've been hanging and choking my whole life. That was 50 years ago. I'm about to be 55. That never leaves you unless you know specific ways to get rid of the shock. So like, let's say this is just a wire, right? And the wire, don't pretend there's no break in it. So this is a nice conductive wire, but when shock happens, beep, it splits. So now this is the circuit breaker. Circuit breaker goes, oh, too much electricity. Shut it down. Otherwise, this brain's going to experience trauma that it can't handle. So you experience shock. So immediately your mouth drops open and you gasp. And when you gasp, you hold your breath. So now your brain says, in the moment, I can't breathe and I can't swallow, right? You can move on from that, but it's still in your nervous system. So that means that neuron, there's probably billions of them, right? That, I'm going to say one neuron that I needed for the rest of my life for me to maybe make better choices in life, or not get sick as much when I was a child, or not be told when I was 46 years old that I would have a heart attack in my 60s and die because of the way my organs were. So if we could recapitulate that neuron and bring the energy back into it, then we can dissipate that shock and we can have the life we're deserved, which is harmony, which is nothing but love. And then maybe you wouldn't be so angry in life, or you wouldn't have anxiety, or you wouldn't be depressed, or you'd be able to handle anything that came at you, because this is life. And you're choosing those moments in your life, but I chose a lot of the wrong moments. And because I was in that moment of shock, I turned out to be a daredevil. I should be dead many, many times. I've done many, many death-defying things that people's skin would crawl. And then as I got older, and when I was 29, I was married. It was a shotgun wedding, and I got divorced, and all hell broke loose. And just next door, across the street, there's a building that says Mark Jacobs, and my best friend owned the company. And I started doing things I never did before in my life. Not putting anybody down. I made those choices, but I went down a road of feeling like I wanted to not be here because I didn't have my child with me. I grew up without a father, so it was horrific for me to not be with my child. In fact, I feel like I want to cry right now, but I shouldn't, because
you can.
Because I have him in my life and things are great. And I've reconciled with her and reconciled with my mother, even though I never got to in real life because she died when I was 26. But all of those things, Melissa, it's not just getting punched in the face right now, which is going to create shock in your head, but it's emotional trauma. And it all turns out to be shock. And then the synapses, they don't work as well. So we don't have this oxygen getting into our prefrontal cortex. And then we're going to experience anxiety. And we're like, well, I'm really busy. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I'm running my own business. But I should still be able to feel good and not let it come on to me. And that's what I'm doing by working with your friend too, is helping him out in that regard. And it's not easy to teach people because they want to continue to do what they've always done, especially in terms of exercise. So as you know, I train world-class athletes, and I'm teaching people to do things that no one is. And I don't mean that. I mean it in a humble way. but I come from that lifestyle. And I know I'm a wrestler. I wrestled for 30 straight years. I've been hit in the head 1,000 times. And every hit to the head is detrimental to your body, to your brain. And when you're in the gym, whenever you're working out, you have to breathe and move. And most people don't even know that they hold their breath, or they do it on purpose. Let me get that next rep in. Well, you just held your breath on the inhale. You became hypertensive. You vasoconstricted your blood vessels, and you stopped yourself from breathing to get that extra rep because you want to look good or you want a tighter muscle, and that's not how it should be done. And it took me 50 years to know that. So now when I train, I never exhaust myself. I never push myself to that point. It's, can I breathe and move during the entire set of whatever I'm doing? My breath cannot stop, because no animal would stop their breath.
Can you explain, though, when you say that? Because when you're saying breathing, when you're working out, you mean nasal breathing.
Yes.
You're breathing through your nose throughout your workout. Are you taping your mouth through the workout, or you've gotten to the place now that you've trained yourself to no longer need that?
I don't need to tape my mouth. I can breathe through my nose. It took 6 months for me to learn that when I first learned with Lois 7 years ago. But I wear a guard on my teeth because your teeth can't touch either. Animals' teeth don't touch. If they're attacking something, they have the prey in their mouth, but they're growling. And the growling is like humming, and they're pressurizing themselves through growling, but they're still breathing through their nose. Like you could try right now. You can hum, silently inhale. Go ahead, silently inhale, and then hum. But make sure your teeth don't touch. Right? And that just actually, that right there. And then when you're ready, invite your brain to swallow. Right. And then that brings a feeling of neurological safety into the nervous system. Can I breathe? Can I hum? And can I swallow? And so my teeth don't touch and my tongue stays on the roof of the mouth, which is a neurological safe position. So I don't need to tape my mouth, but I do keep something to stop my teeth from touching. And there's a very specific reason why. It has to do with your cranial nerves.
Okay. For people out there that are living, I feel like, the world in that state of trauma, chaos, living life like a tiger is chasing you at every minute, which is the world that I come from, which I've had to do this unlearning of the mechanics that I've built over the years to survive through the anxiety and the stress that I've internalized throughout life, right? I feel like the majority of human beings are unfortunately in that state as their baseline, right? How do they start? I think from, knowing nothing about this world of nasal breathing, because I think people get really overwhelmed by it. Even if you mention the word meditation or breath work, it feels heavy. And you have such a simplified way of like introducing it, how to stay with it, and then the markers that you want to pay attention to over time, which for me is like, it's just become this self-awareness of stress management and anxiety levels of just like waking up, opening my eyes, and through nasal breathing now, when I'm sleeping, that alone has been, I cannot believe. I was just saying to Dylan before this, I'm like, I'm different since I've been doing it. I feel like I live more in a neutral zone, and I can get anxious easily. Things can rock me easily, but I feel like my ability to recognize, cope, and come back to the tools, right, of breathing through my nose, inhaling through my nose, exhaling out through my nose, has brought me to a place in life that I really like living.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have a strategy now. That's great. And you're just going to continue to develop it over time and make it work even better for you. But what you said, that the majority of people are like that. Yeah. Because we live in a stimulated world. And ideally, we should all be, this is not religious, we should all be the Buddha. It has nothing to do with an ideology. It's about awakening, enlightenment, right? You were supposed to live in that state. You're not supposed to walk across the street in New York City and, watch out for a bike.
Oh, gosh.
Right? They're not even cars anymore. It's bikes, right? You have to be on your toes all the time. And that's too stimulating. Although I love New York. I'm born and raised here and I love it.
Me too.
And people say, how could you live here? Because I know how to deal with it and I have strategies.
Exactly. That's what it is. But I've noticed my sensitivities to it now in such a different way. And when I feel that way, I know it's time to just go deeper inward. Maybe not, expose myself to all the things, go out to all the events, go out on the street even as often, but just take that time to listen to what's coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard because the noise is like static. It's like the bees. The bees aren't, they're being bombarded with pesticides, but they're being bombarded with radiation that they've never had to deal with before. And we're bees, right? We're electromagnetic beings. That's what Lois talks about. That's the bioelectrics. So there's a hierarchy to breathing. And in Oxygen Advantage, we say biochemistry first, biomechanics, and then the psychophysiological part of the breath, which is rhythm breathing. But the bioelectrics are on top of that. So we have to organize our electrical system to work the way it's designed to. So then all the other ones work themselves out on their own. I'm not saying don't train it, but what I teach people is to restore autonomic, which is effortless breathing. So now it's less about doing breath holding. I do all that stuff. It's part of the way I teach, especially because I teach athletes, but I teach super moms like yourself. I have a mom in Australia, 3 children, all very, very young. And prior to our working together, she said she would lash out at her kids because they're kids. And she's like, that doesn't happen anymore. I have a much better way of dealing with them. And because I'm calmer, they're calmer.
I can relate.
And I was like, wow. I don't know what it's like. I'm the dad, so it's different. I have a different perspective.
Right.
I always was the crazy guy with my kid because that's how I am. I'm active. So, right. But the mom has to be the rock. And you have to be able to take care of yourself first, right? That's why they say, put your oxygen mask on first, then you put it on your children. So I teach people how to put their oxygen mask on by stimulating their brain stem specifically.
Can you guide us with one, I would truly say like beginner level introduction to nasal breathing?
Sure.
I feel like I need to get in here. Let's get to work.
Well, the first thing we want to pay attention to is how we're breathing. We know we're supposed to breathe through our nose. The nose has over 30 functions for breathing. But no one does. Mouth has 0. You never breathe through your mouth unless you're eating. Well, even then, you shouldn't be breathing through your mouth or talking. That's the only time you should breathe through your mouth. Other than that, your tongue is on the roof of your mouth, your teeth are slightly apart, and you're nasal breathing silently, right? If there's noise, the body's in distress. If the mouth opens, the body's in distress. So whatever happens, as soon as you start to breathe through your mouth, you're in autonomic distress. Things aren't going right because you're not getting oxygen to your brain. And then people say, take a big breath or take a deep breath. But that's a fast and hard breath. That's not how we want to breathe. We want to breathe silent. We want to breathe gentle. And we want to breathe low. and deep. So there, in the yogic science of breathing, there's 4 types of breathing. There's high breathing, which people call vertical, right? That was me. I was the worst breather. I've worked with, I don't know, like in the last 7 years, over 700 people. And I was the worst breather I've ever met out of all those people. And I was like, wow, I literally haven't met anybody breathing as poorly as I was, which is why, as they said, my organs were failing.
Just all in your chest, which is all stress, fight or flight breathing.
Yeah. Being bent over for 30 years as a wrestler, powerlifting, putting 600 pounds on my spine, and everything was pressurizing. So I walk through life pressurized, right? One big aha moment I had was walking down the street in New York City and noticing when someone has their head down and they don't get out of your way and they make you walk around them, that as soon as I had to get out of the way, I would inhale, hold my breath, and secretly judge them. Like, oh, you're not paying attention, Jesus Christ.
You have nowhere to go. That's what I'm working on.
Right. And now what happens is I see them coming. I know they're not paying attention. I focus on breathing and I veer out of the way. New Yorkers don't do that.
Instead of telling people to fuck off.
Yeah. Now I just veer out of the way because I'm young, I'm nimble, and I'm protecting myself. I don't need to teach them a lesson. I'm not going to. That's not my job. So you continue to learn to breathe light. Now, most people can't breathe light. They have very stuffy noses. And there's a whole host of reasons why. Trauma to the brainstem. So your brain is going to pressurize itself and your nasal passages are going to slow down. A diet full of grains and starches. People wake up in the morning and have to blow their nose. That's not normal. You shouldn't have to blow your nose in the morning. That's all the food you've been eating. So it has to come out some way. So the body's going to bring it out in mucus. If you have mucus, it's your diet. So the first thing we want to learn is to breathe light. So I have people sit in a nice upright position like you're in, and I tell them to just gently close your eyes, Melissa, and don't do anything. Just sit for a few seconds and just observe yourself. Don't breathe how you think Bryan wants you to breathe.
I am.
Because you know better. Just observe it. Just observe your body and don't judge it. Don't say, oh, what happened? Did that come a little too high? Are my shoulders moving? Don't. Just observe it and honor yourself for where you are in the moment. And what we do with Lois is we initiate a safety statement. So you can silently say this, or you can repeat it in the microphone with your eyes closed. Say, in this moment.
In this moment.
In Soho.
In Soho.
In my beautiful city of New York.
In my beautiful city of New York.
In my beautiful body.
In my beautiful body.
And my beautiful heart.
And my beautiful heart.
Feel 100% safe.
I feel 100% safe.
Who says that? We need to say that to ourselves on a daily basis, that we feel safe in our environment. It's critical. So now, as you breathe and you feel the slightly colder air enter your nose, you're going to feel the slightly warmer air leave your nose. When you inhale, you don't inhale up, you inhale back into the back of your throat. And there's this little tiny imaginary button in the back of your throat. It's like being at a carnival and shooting the water gun into the clown's mouth and trying to win the race. So when you inhale horizontally, lightly, and slowly, you will immediately breathe deeply, which is low. So we won't have any vertical breathing. We won't even have any mid breathing, which is thoracic. We're going to get low breathing, which is diaphragmatic. But the fourth level of breathing, which is where we want to breathe all the time, is complete. And that's by breathing low down in your perineum, which we can call the anus. I like to call it the South Pole. So as I inhale very slowly through the nose, you're breathing so light that the fine nose hairs within your nostrils barely move. You're breathing so gentle that there's hardly any turbulence inside of your nose. And as you learn to breathe light, slow, and gentle, your blood pH starts to normalize itself. Because as you inhale slowly, your nose produces a miracle gas called nitric oxide. And in order to get the most amount of nitric oxide, you have to breathe as gentle and slow through your nose as possible. And nitric oxide is a vasodilator. And it actually ushers more oxygen deeper into the lungs and the little tiny alveoli sacs. So we don't need to breathe in very much. It's even just a count of 3. So first we learn to breathe light, which is dimension number 1. Then we learn to breathe deep, which is dimension number 2. As we're breathing horizontally, we're telling the diaphragm to move downward. And when the diaphragm moves downward, it gets a greater amplitude. It gets bigger. And it moves the ribs out to the side. A lot of people are practicing breathing and they're moving themselves. No. We want to autonomically, effortlessly breathe. So we don't have to practice a rhythm. We can, but ideally we should be breathing like that all the time.
It is unbelievable what that does to your nervous system.
It takes 3 minutes.
I feel so calm. And even just, it's like that visualization of like going straight back and then down. And you realize how much more you can expand the diaphragm in all directions, because I've been taught, even through trainings, you want to expand outward. You want to expand in all directions.
Lateral and behind you into your kidneys.
Right. Because you would have me put my hands in my back pocket.
That's Qigong breathing. You have to stimulate your kidneys because they help to remove waste. So when you breathe downward and into the back, you energize your primordial energy, which are your kidneys. So you can regenerate your body, which I've done. And again, humbly, I thank everybody I've worked with. I didn't do it on my own. I did it because I'm dedicated. As a wrestler, I'm ridiculously disciplined. To be a fruitarian, you have to be ridiculously disciplined.
Well, let's talk about that, because you are very lean and you're a fruitarian. You eat fruit for your entire diet.
No, I cheat sometimes, but
you have other things. No cheating.
Yeah, but no, 98% of the time I'm eating fruit.
Okay.
It's just sometimes I get a little bored, so I'll eat nuts at night, but I stay on a raw diet.
Okay.
So I don't really want to label myself as a fruitarian. It's more of a practicing a raw food lifestyle.
And what led you to that lifestyle?
Well, 7 years ago was when I had my breathing awakening with Lois. And for about a year, then I became Oxygen Advantage certified. And then as I started to command my breathing, my blood pH started to normalize itself. And I started to feel calmer. I felt the anxiety leave my body. And then all of a sudden, I just started feeling like there was something missing. And I found Dr. Sebi on YouTube. And Dr. Sebi led me to Dr. Morse, who's a 72-year-old godfather of health down in Punta Gorda, Florida, who has his own center. And I learned about fruit. And they're saying that they have patients that have every debilitating disease known to man that have been cured by being on a fruit diet alone. He has a student who was a quadriplegic. The man fell out of an airplane, hit the water at 90 miles an hour, severed its spine. So he couldn't eat himself. So they fed him fruit for a year. Well, his spine grew back and he walks now just from eating fruit. And of course, they had him on herbs, stimulating his nervous system. You can do all those kinds of things because we have, if you could take out half a liver and it grows back, that means everything grows back. So anybody who tells you can't is ridiculous. And I had 2 major herniations in my lower discs, S1 and L5, where I was crippled for 2.5 years. My son's stepdad is one of the top orthopedic surgeons in America. He looked at my MRI and he said, "You need surgery. People with your condition are begging me." But I was dealt with pain my whole life. So I took the pain because I said, there's no way I'm going to let them operate on my discs and fuse my spine. But I didn't know why. I just intuitively knew I wasn't going to let that happen. And then I found Thomas Myers up in Maine. I started doing all this fascial work. I've been a fascial fitness expert for 13 years. And then the breathing led me to find the food. So I went to my acupuncturist, who I think you've seen, and I said to him, I'm going to do this diet. And I'd only seen him for about 8 months. And he said, I don't think you should. And I said, why, Dr. Meng? He said, because you need protein. And I said, Dr. Meng, I haven't had protein in already like 6 years. I stopped eating flesh 13 years ago. Now, of course, I say I eat nuts once in a while when I'm bored, but not because I feel like I need it, the protein, just because I want something else. That's all. Because it can get kind of boring sometimes, especially when your wife doesn't eat like that and nobody else around you eats like that. But I still stay true to myself. So I did it for a month. I go to see him every single week. He listened to my pulses and he said, wow, you're changing rapidly. This diet's working for you. You should keep going. And I said, okay, this is good. First you told me not to. Now you're encouraging me. And I like that because a lot of other people wouldn't do that. But he's reading me and he's like, okay, you should keep doing this. I'll keep monitoring you. And then 10 months went by and he said, Bryan, what you've done with your body is nothing short of remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. I didn't know it was possible. He said, and you're getting younger. Now, this man has been doing acupuncture for 50 years, since he's 10 years old. His grandma was the acupuncturist in China in their village. So they've healed people for, forever using traditional Chinese medicine techniques. But they didn't understand the lymphatic system that good. So what happened was, the reason my organs were failing is because and I'm not blaming this all on meat, it's stress that I've incurred in my life. But I also wanted to be big and strong. So I had, 150 grams of protein every single day. Your body can't digest all that.
It's hard to digest.
And your body doesn't make protein from ingesting protein. That's not how it works. Protein is just calories. The more you eat, the more calories you get. That's why you're getting bigger and making muscle, because of calories, not because of the protein, because I don't eat protein. I take marine phytoplankton. So I take this organism by Ascended Health, and this organism is the first organism created by light, sound, vibration, and God 4.5 billion years ago. And it has all of the amino acids, so every single amino acid, the essentials, all of the essential fats, and almost every single vitamin and mineral.
It's a supplement or a powder?
It's a powder. It's a freeze-dried food, not a supplement.
Got it.
So
where do you get this?
From ascendedhealth.com. They're brilliant. The owner of Ascended Health, Compton Ram, used to be the head engineer in Google Scholar, but he's also an anthropological molecular biologist. So he's been to every blue zone in the world. He knows how to restore the microbiome, your skin, your face, your tongue, your belly. So he's restoring the microbiome by giving you these keystone microbes that actually flourish, that a human being flourishes with. And it helps remove, so when you stop putting the other stuff in your body, they start dying off. So after 10 months, he was like, you're regenerating your body. He said, you're actually stimulating your primordial energy to fill its cup. And I didn't know you could do that. He said, I was just trying to help you not get any worse. That's how bad you were. And now that was 5 years ago. So I've been doing this for 5 years. And that's why I say now, every once in a while I cheat, because he told me, if this is what excellent is, whatever that is, the apex of your organs, he said, you were down here. You were in like sub-basement level 8. You were dying. He's like, now you've gone all the way up the mountain, but now you're here. He goes, and now it's like trying to sprint 100 meters. How much faster can you get? right? So you actually have to work harder. So I have to stay more true to my diet and continue to clean my lymphatic system to remove the acids so the stem cells that I were born with can come out and say, hey, you cell, you're not functioning very well. Bink, now you are, because that's what stem cells do. So I'm getting younger and I feel it. I'm moving better than I've ever moved. I don't have any joint pain, and I was riddled with joint pain. I couldn't sleep, and it just I get younger and younger all the time, and I'm about to be 55, and I feel like we can live to at least 150.
I see. I talk to my kids about this all the time. I'm like, I think I might beat the record. I'm like, this is like, we need to just focus on longevity and joy and staying true to the things that work for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge believer in fruit. I feel like fruit gets such a bad rap. It's crazy when you think about it, right? It's literally from the earth, and the amount of nutrients that you get from eating fruit alone. I mean, in the summer, I can literally eat fruit all day. For me, things have really changed. I talked to you about this, and it's become less of this need to explain or label and more of a listening, and more of just having this freedom with self and food and not feeling like it has to be one way, right, which I've done. But I will say, I recently I had Kimberly Snyder on the podcast, who's been plant-based for many years. And I feel that at my core, I function truly my best when I'm primarily plant-based, when I'm mostly plant-based. So the focus is on plants and fruit and eating what the earth is providing us.
Well, the one thing that the fruits provide are enzymes. Every single fruit mirrors the enzymes that your body makes. No other food does that. And that's the most important part. I don't know them exactly, but like an orange will have the same exact enzyme as your liver. I'm not sure if that's actually it, but I know that that's how it works. So that's important. So that's the only time you're replenishing enzymes. And when you're eating things that maybe you shouldn't be eating, your body has to use its enzymes just to digest the food.
And the energy. It's an overproduction of energy that depletes your energy when you're working overtime to break things down. I mean, eating fruit in the morning, it's like my digestive system is very alive.
Yeah.
Which is very important.
Yeah.
Things that we have to talk about.
Yeah, that's great.
Right? Okay. I want to share some more techniques because I think people are just going to want all of these truly like these beginner level introductions to this. I would love for you to just expand a little bit on single nostril breathing.
Oh, that's what I was going to do when you said this.
Funny.
I was like, well, now that you learn to breathe light, to breathe slow and deep, then you take your thumb and you keep it like this, and you bring your thumb under your nostril, and you very gently cover the nostril without placing any pressure in or up. And now,
because I was going like this before, I was piercing it.
Yeah, that will activate cranial nerve 5, which is the trigeminal nerve. It's a massive nerve, and it'll steal energy from all the other nerves devoted to breathing. So we don't want to activate it. So we would also keep a stick in between our teeth to neutralize it. Then
and tongue on the roof.
Tongue on the roof of the mouth.
In the
lips
front,
apart. Yep.
Or in the back.
The tongue, it's not touching the teeth, it's behind the teeth. And there's pressure to the back of the roof of the mouth, which is your soft palate, which is where your pressure regulator is, glossopharyngeal cranial nerve 9. So that's why that's really important. So then you block your nostril. Now, immediately people say to me, oh, I can't breathe. And I go, well, that's really interesting. You didn't know you couldn't breathe when you weren't blocking both nostrils, which means you're living in fight or flight all the time, but you don't know it because it's a low-level fight or flight. So when we same-side nasal breathe, we're teaching our brain, okay, I don't have control over my right nostril any longer. I can only breathe out of my left. In order to keep this human alive, I have to breathe slower. I have to open my nose to get more oxygen in to keep this person alive, because this is the only avenue I now have to breathe. So what we do is right nostril, right brain. Anything on the face is the same side of the brain. It's the appendages where it goes left brain, right side, but anything on the face is right side, right brain, left brain. So now when we're blocking that side and we're breathing light and slow, we're switching on that hemisphere. And you only need to do a minute.
To drop into the parasympathetic nervous system.
Right.
And both sides help you drop.
Yep. But what I would have is I'd have a stick in between your four front teeth to neutralize cranial nerve 5, to allow the cranial nerve 1, which is our nose, our olfactory nerve, which is our most primal, to breathe in harmony. And we would sync the left and right hemispheres before we do anything else, so the brain can receive the signal. So you got to turn on the nose first before you do anything. And you do that by doing same side nasal breathing. And you could do 1 minute. So I like to teach people do 1 minute. And then this is very important. So when you're doing this and maybe you're at 20 seconds and you go, I'm feeling you, before the feeling comes on where you don't feel good, you move your finger. And you never let any feelings of I can't, that's stress. So we don't stress the body to teach it to go parasympathetic.
Right.
That's another thing we should talk about, because everyone thinks if I'm stimulating my body.
I've done that.
It doesn't work the way they're saying.
Can you explain, for example, doing like breath of fire or very strong breath work where even just strong inhales and exhales out through the nose, or there's so many different things, which I've done. I feel like it's this constant learning and evolving and experimenting with things and trying different things on to see what helps you tap into a deeper sense of ease within yourself. And it's amazing how going slower, longer, deeper can actually make you calmer.
Yeah. Well, when you do exercises like that, or that are more of a hyperventilation journey, you feel alive.
You do.
Because you're focusing on your breathing, which you don't do. So it makes you feel alive. But we have to know what's happening physiologically. So just because you feel alive doesn't mean it's good for you. You can, I shouldn't say this, but you can have 2 drinks. I'll do something better. You could have 2 drinks and feel alive. Didn't mean it's good for you.
Right.
Everyone says, in moderation. No. No, you can do it. You've adapted to do it. The human body can adapt to anything, but it's still degrading the system on a level that you're not aware of, right? And that's what hyperventilation is doing too, because it's a vasoconstrictor. It's removing carbon dioxide, which is your pressure regulator of your body. You need carbon dioxide in your body. It's not a waste gas. You make it. You don't get it from the outside. You get oxygen from the outside. You make your own CO2. It's medicine. So when you remove the carbon dioxide, your body's going to sense more pressure. You may feel alive, but you're going to have to breathe harder. You're going to breathe faster, and you're vasoconstricting your vessels. That's creating pressure. More importantly, is lowers cell voltage, because remember, we're bioelectric beings. So when we breathe harder and faster, we remove the electricity for our cells to function properly. And that's where there is a slight, there's a very famous man in the world who has brought breathing to the world and made it very popular. However, a lot of people have died and continue to die. One just happened recently. I know somebody who was on a retreat, and they were in this group, and this woman that they were in the group with is 55 years old, and this isn't even in the news yet. This just happened 4 weeks ago. And this woman on day 4 passed away in her sleep. She had a stroke.
From the stress of the breathing.
Yeah. They said she lied on her medical history, but, well, when you're hyperventilating and your body's already in a position where it's got low cell voltage, it's got low carbon dioxide, which means you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, things happen. So when you're stressing and pressurizing yourself, if you don't know where you sit in the moment with your breathing and with your cranial nerves, are you doing harm or are you doing good, even though you feel good?
Right, because it gives you this, I mean, the way that I've implemented it is doing that style, almost that more vigorous breathing, right? It gives you this high, like you're saying, but then I like to settle into the drop-in, going into that more easeful breath. But as my practice has evolved, I find less of the need to go into stronger cycles of breathing in that manner. But like you were saying, I think most people are walking around not breathing at all. So even just starting there and breathing and paying attention to your breath it's a start, right?
Sure. Everything has merits. They get you to a certain place. I started with a hyperventilation technique before I started with Lois. And then after I took her class, I said, oh, no wonder I don't feel like I'm getting better. I feel good in the moment, but I can't sleep. My body's still killing me. And I'm not getting any better. And that's when I stopped, which was 7 years ago. And now I teach people to be calm, to be still. You can't shift your nervous system from a sympathetic state. It's impossible. Sympathetic state means you're using energy. You're not gaining any. So even with cold immersion, in Chinese medicine, they don't believe in cold immersion because it congeals the blood, which means there's no movement.
Do you do it?
I only take cold showers. So I would never immerse myself in the cold. And if I did, or somebody asked me about it, I would say, then don't do more than 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need. But again,
I've found that out the hard way.
Numbing yourself. You feel alive, but it doesn't mean it's good for you, even though you feel so good. This
is such a controversial topic. I mean, listen, I hated going in the cold plunge. Hated it. It just, first of all, I couldn't even stay in for 10, 15 seconds because I would go into that gasping hyperventilation mode, which your body is so stressed out, you can't stay in.
Right.
And I've found for me, it was really just this curiosity with it, because I did feel this burst of energy after even 10, 15 seconds where I was like, wow, what is this doing to me? And then I think with my true competitive nature with self of just always wanting to overcome things. And it's not truly physical. It's about mastering my mind. Mm-hmm. And from learning to breathe in this way through nasal breathing, back to the throat, and then down slow, deep to your anus, I could stay in. And it was more like I stayed in for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then I was like, let me stay in for 5 minutes, Amazing. 6 minutes, 10 minutes. And recently I learned I don't have to stay in longer than a couple minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because I feel like the prolonged effects in a different way. But I feel the longer I was staying in was depleting me. Mm-hmm. This is actually something I really wanted to talk about because I do like a cold plunge, but I've discovered less is more for me.
Yeah. Well, it's like homeopathy. When they give you a bottle to take home of homeopathy, if you look at the bottle of the solution, it'll say 97 or it'll say 99.03 water, and the rest of it is the actual homeopathy solution. You only need a tiny, tiny bit, right? The body just needs the right signal. And once you give it the right signal, it knows what to do because it's designed by nature. And then we learn to organize it ourselves. But we're perfect. We have everything, even the cannabinoid system. I've gotten a lot of people from stopping smoking. And they're like, yeah, but why do we have a cannabinoid system if it's not designed to be smoked? I was like, just because there's a plant that correlates to what we have in our brain doesn't mean that you're supposed to do it. That's the plant system. We have our own cannabinoid system because we can actually activate it through calm, slow breathing where our brain is functioning at a high level. And then the cannabinoid system that's already there knows what to do, right? We always know what to do. We have this ability. We were born perfect. And we're perfect now, right? You're doing the best you can all the time. And you just have to honor yourself where you are. But it's good to have those kinds of experiences because it taught you something, different.
Yes.
You said, okay, I feel what I feel. And now maybe I don't need to do that much. And really, it's true. You probably only need to dip in. Contrast is better. Dip in the cold.
I love a contrast.
Dip in the cold. Dip in the hot.
Live for a contrast.
That's better than staying immersed in it because your body has to work harder to either heat itself up or cool itself down. You don't want the body to work hard. Even in exercise. Again, I say, I only exercise to the point that I can control my breathing. So no matter how hard I want to go, it's going to be dictated by how I'm breathing. So if I can't control the rhythm of my breath, then I'm not going to continue the exercise. If I don't have, I need to do 15 or 3 sets. It's go as hard as I can, not, sorry for this expression, balls to the wall, but not as hard as I can that way, but as hard as I can that I'm pushing myself, but still able to breathe like a cheetah does when it's trying to catch the antelope. And like the antelope does when it's trying to get away from the cheetah, their mouths aren't open.
Can you explain a little deeper that, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are an advocate for more low impact movement over this high intensity craze of needing to get your body in that state of, I think a lot of people believe that you have to be in that state of intense cardiovascular movements or breathing to see results.
Yeah. Well, of course, it feels good. That's why
I don't think it does anymore.
Right?
It does not work for me.
Me too.
I feel miserable. My body and my spirit rejects it.
Yeah, it's good because you can't breathe.
I can't breathe.
When you can't breathe and you keep going, your brain's saying, hello, anybody home? Yeah, you can push yourself. This is why I have a lot of athletes. And just today, I got Instagrammed by a former hockey player who recently purchased my program just because he found me online. And he said, Bryan, I wish I had this when I was playing hockey. And I hear a lot of athletes say that. I have a lot of former athletes too. And they're like, oh my God, if I only had this. I said, I know, because we were taught that way. The coaches know how to teach you the sport, but they don't know how to train your nervous system.
And how to breathe. So they say, you got to push as hard as you can because that's how you get better. You got to work out harder than your opponent. No, I don't. Thank you. Thank you. And low impact doesn't mean easy.
Right.
It's not like people always ask me, they're like, how can you film as many days as you do a week? I'm like, because I'm not putting my body in a state that I'm rejecting.
So you can recover.
This is a harmonious way of moving. And I'm able to recover truly through breathing in a more restorative way through the movements.
Through the
movements. And I still, listen, I have a long way to go. Forever a student. Very humbly will always say that because I listen to myself, even in a story sometimes if I'm talking and I'm like, and I'm like, okay, we gotta, right? Because it's just revealing.
going to happen.
Right. But it's interesting to just observe with no judgment ways to deepen,
right,
to soften, even in the practice. And even, people will be like, we want more challenging this. I'm in my 40s, I've had 2 kids. I've running a business. You do not have to kill yourself to see results. And it doesn't mean that this work is easy, because it's still a challenge to move in this way and to stay with it and to come back to it every single day. Right? It's not you do it and then you're done for a couple. No, there's this devotion to self in this practice.
Yeah.
When you've come from knowing what it feels like to live feeling like complete shit, and then getting to a place of bliss with yourself.
Right. There you go.
You don't want to go that other way. This isn't hard. That's fucking hard. Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are not in the place to look at themselves.
We were taught that stress is good for you, certain types of stress, but that's just an opinion, really, because we're not looking at everybody's unique, and your brainstem, your cranial nerves are your fingerprint, your energetic fingerprint in the moment. So you can work hard without creating those shock experiences, because when you open your mouth, your body's in autonomic distress. So you're already using reserve energy that you can't get back. So exercise like this, here's my body running along in homeostasis. So as soon as I start to exercise, I dip. I don't go up. So people don't realize about exercise. It's taxing. It's stressful. Any type of it, even low impact, it's still stressing my body, but it's not so bad because it's low impact. So my body doesn't go as deep into a depression. So I'm coming along in homeostasis. I work out. Okay. I worked out. I stressed my body. Now I'm coming out and I get back to homeostasis. Most people will work out before they get here and they go like this over time. Whereas we want to travel, we want to work out, then we want to recover, and then we go up with our recovery, and then you get to the top with super compensation. And that's where you train again, when you're fully recovered and ready. And then now you go, this is what I teach my students, you're always going like this. And then people will tell me, oh, I felt this today. What's going on? I'm like, yeah, but you started here.
Right.
The dip you're feeling up here is way higher than where you started. And now you've just gained more awareness and you're like, oh, and that might be because maybe they stressed themselves too much.
Right. They're depleting themselves in their workouts. I always say workouts should enhance your energy. If you are feeling completely drained, and also, when I was in that cycle of feeling like I had to do high intensity workouts, I had to lift really heavy weights in order to see results. I was starving all day and I was exhausted because my body was working overdrive to break everything down, right? Yeah. And I just depleted every ounce of my energy in my workout.
Yeah, it couldn't even absorb nutrients. When your body's in that state and it's overpressurized, it can't absorb nutrients, which was me. I ate as much. I mean, everyone's like, oh, you're so lean. I've always been lean. But I wasn't gaining any nutrition from my food because I wasn't breathing properly. Right? I mean, animals live long, long lives too. They don't struggle. All female animals can give birth in the last year of their life. They can give birth. They don't have trouble. They don't have any other dysfunctions, right? They don't have to be taught how to breathe through their nose. I remember I was in Utah last year for 2 weeks. The first week was 75 degrees, and then all of a sudden, boom, it plummeted. In one day, we had 6 inches of snow, and it was 32 degrees, and I was in the mountains, and all the animals walking around, and they were like shivering. But I really said that. I said, wait a minute. It's not just that they have fur. It's that they're regulating their body temperature because they breathe perfectly. And I'm teaching people how to breathe because we were born breathing perfectly and then it stopped. And when you restore that autonomic, effortless breath, you gain that parasympathetic energy, and that's when you shift. That's when you have these awarenesses. That's when you get a promotion at work. That's when you feel like you're ready to have a child. That's when you meet the right person for you, because you're in that parasympathetic state, which is where you're supposed to be, which is harmonious. And that's when the law of attraction meets you where you're at.
And it opens your heart.
And it opens your heart, of course.
Which helps you connect
to
humans and in real life, like in living flesh. No matter where you are, you bring a different openness.
Yeah.
Can you explain why? Because I think a lot of people are very intimidated and scared of mouth taping at night. Why this helps you drop into such a restorative state and helps you wake up feeling so much more restful, less anxious, even less depressed.
Well, sleep is restorative. It's the highest form of neurological organization is sleep. So we need sleep. But we don't need 8 hours. In fact, a sleep cycle is 4 hours. So you could sleep 4 hours, wake up and feel fine and have a full day. I do that sometimes. Or you could sleep for 4 hours, wake up, be up for a little while, do some same-side nasal breathing out of the left side because it's soothing and cooling. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, only breathe out of your left nostril, you'll go right back to bed. But when you tape your mouth, for those that breathe with their mouth open, that's really bad because that's what's degrading the nerves, because you're breathing through the mouth and you're probably experiencing some form of sleep apnea, whether you've been diagnosed with it or not. So people start off taping their mouth, but the trigeminal nerve, which I mentioned earlier is a large nerve, it's also has sensors on the face and it's got 3 branches. And one of the branches is called the mental nerve. And if you put tape over your mouth, you stimulate that mental nerve, and now your lips don't know to stay closed on their own, which is normal to breathe through your nose when you're sleeping. So I did this for 6 years. I taped my mouth. I needed to, but I taped over it. And now with Lois in Oxygen Advantage, we make a tape that goes around the lips.
I saw you post that.
Yeah. But I tried it a few years ago and I couldn't sleep with my mouth closed. I was still snoring because whatever trauma, can't go there. But when I'm on my back, my chin would open because my jaw's been broken and my jaw was set back. So if I was on my back, my mouth would fall wide open because my brain is in distress. So the body doesn't know how to be in that neurological safe position. So it has to open the mouth to breathe. It's got no choice, even though that's bad for us. So I taped my mouth. It helped. And then recently I got back to the myotape and I said, whoa, I'm waking up with my tongue on the roof of my mouth and my mouth is wet and I'm sleeping better than I've ever slept because I've trained myself now through neural activation techniques over the last 4 months. Because in neurology, it's a 120-day cycle because it takes 120 days to develop new red blood cells. So it has to be a 120-day cycle of doing the same thing. And now after 120 days, I can wake up and I know that that tape around my lips is now encouraging my body to know to keep them together all the time without having to fully tape. So you might have to start with fully taping.
Or even just the single, one slab of tape in the middle of the mouth.
But ultimately, you want to get to the point where you go around the lips. But again, if there's structural things going on, you might have to do it forever.
Right.
I have some structural things going on. I have teeth missing. So my palate has shrunk. So that will make me open my mouth. So I don't know yet. I haven't tried to sleep without it. But I think eventually, as I keep hitting every 120-day cycle and I keep resyncing and reorganizing my cranial nerves, that one day I should be able to sleep without the tape.
Right. I've done it a few times because it's been well over 6 months since I've been doing it. I think it's coming up on a year, actually.
I met you a little over a year ago.
Yeah. So it's been a year. And I mean, I just feel, like I said, I've woken up almost my entire life literally anxious. It's just like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's not even circumstantial. It's just a way of a state of being. And now through taping, I feel this deeper sense of calm. Because can you just explain? So when your mouth is taped, you're deepening that diaphragmatic breathing.
Yeah. You're fully engaging your diaphragm.
Right.
And then your brain is saying, well, this is the only orifice I can breathe through. I better open it. So then you might wake up in the morning with congestion because you're getting rid of all the stuckness that was in your mucus linings. But you're going to be breathing slower when you're sleeping with the tape on. So that means when you exhale, you're retaining carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is the signaling molecule that signals hemoglobin to release oxygen from the red blood cell. So now, if I'm breathing through my nose with the tape over my mouth and I'm retaining carbon dioxide, I'm liberating oxygen to get to my brain that's going to keep me in a deeper sleep and have that neurological organization happen. So when I wake up, I feel more rested.
Right.
And I'm recovering better.
I used to be the person who needed like 8, 9. I would sleep so much. As I've gotten older, I've discovered that actually 7. I mean, sleep is the most important thing to me. I prioritize my sleep hygiene above anything else because I just feel so much better. But I have found that sleeping for 7 hours with my mouth tape, I almost feel like I slept for 10 because it's so deep.
Yes.
And this weekend, I was out late. I had to get up early for my son's sports and I slept like 6 hours, which is not a lot of sleep for me, but I felt completely fine all day because it was such a restorative sleep.
Yeah. And your body can deal with that. If it's just once, it's fine.
But
and you've taught yourself how to breathe.
I've taught myself how to breathe.
That's great.
It's the life force. It's so important. I love the work you share. And
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's really changed and enhanced my practice, this ever evolving practice, right? Of learning and adjusting and experimenting with things. But the teachings that you share are so instrumental for, I think this quest of growth and calming and regulating my nervous system. It's so important.
Well, what makes me happiest is not to hear it about me because I didn't come up with it. I'm teaching what I've been taught. What makes me happiest is to hear you have such a good experience. And I always tell my students, I don't even like to call them students. I'm not a teacher. I just happen to know something that they want to know, right? Because there's no hierarchy. We're all in this together. And I just want to hear people to feel better.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. It's my purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
In my gene key, I'm embodying my soul's purpose, which is health and wellness. So I have it in my gene key, but I'm also living it. So I'm the living embodiment. And now I know as a projector that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be sitting here with you, with your beautiful audience, people that really want to make changes, lifestyle changes, so they can feel better, so they can emanate love to the rest of the world, because that's what you need to do is we need to raise the consciousness level, not of everybody else, of me, that transfers to you, that transfers to Dylan. And then that's how we create a harmonious life, which we're going to have. We're in the throngs of it because the darkness is being exposed, but the light is coming out into the planet. It's astrological. We can't stop it.
I agree. And it's just this awakening movement of people wanting to feel good and thrive, no longer live in this cycle of survival, which I know so many people do. That was the state I grew up in, and you carry that with you. Yeah. So to learn that even with outside circumstances of your environment, you can change how you function inside.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the most profound things to teach people, that grow up in horrible situations. It rips my heart out.
Yeah.
But to be able to teach these tools that you can create this safety and this home within yourself, no matter where you are, it's something, I want everyone to learn, which is why I was like, Bryan, I have to have you on. You need to tell everyone where they can find you, follow you, sign up for your courses.
Thank you. My website is quantumfitness.org. So I made it quantum because of the bioelectric energy we are all a part of. My Instagram is breath_verse. Those are really the two best places. I have a brand new program that I just launched digitally. It's called Neuro Breathe. So I'm teaching people how to activate their brain and then teaching them a basic breathing exercise. But it's really more about the brain.
Awesome.
And everything's very affordable because I want people to be able to do it. The Neuro Breathe course is $55 and the live course is $199 for 4 weeks. I mean, I could make it thousands of dollars, but then only 100 people would buy it.
Right, exactly.
So now we want 1 million people to buy it. And I'm honored to be on here with you. You're a beautiful soul. Your light is shining. I see all the people that come in contact with you, and they all have this effervescence about them. Your friend who I work with, it's just, and that's who we attract too. It's what we're attracting. Because I wasn't always like this.
Same.
I was not always like this.
Same.
I was an egomaniac, narcissist, emotional, angry, aggressive person. Because that's how I grew up. That was my environment. But if you're not growing, you're dying. Right? You're not evolving, you're stagnant. Energy is all about movement. Energy is always in motion. So let's make that motion go towards the betterment of humanity.
So beautiful. And at any point, you can change when you choose to.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa.